Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Good afternoon to all you beautiful people out there from the studio of Abuja Leadership Podcast. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this edition of Money Radio. Today being Thursday, this is the energy segment of the program. Today we are discussing a topic that says reviewing power sector's 5,000 megawatts agreement 1 month after. Reviewing power sector's 5,000 megawatts agreement 1 month after. About a month ago, in fact, about a month ago, the federal government had said that they were going to activate, and they did activate an agreement between the federal government and stakeholders to make sure that Nigeria gets 5,000 megawatts of electricity steady. What did they do? What they did not do? But we see that there's little improvement in the power sector compared to the previous 2 or 3 months, although we are still having collapses. This month we have had a collapse. No, we are in August. I'm talking about July. We have had a collapse. And that was the 6th in 7 months. But at least we are seeing some little improvement compared to the previous months. What is going on? What was that agreement, first of all? And what is going on? Before we discuss the topic, I have to introduce our in-house analyst, Mr. Anthony Uko. For those of you who have been following this program, she's a very familiar face. In fact, the most familiar face on Money Radio, Energy. And I can assure you, you are in good company, because when it comes to energy matters, we talk about stakeholders. Nsa is a stakeholder, I can assure you. So, Nsa, what is going on? What was that agreement?
Yes, I was quite amazed when I found out that before now, the power sector has been operating on what they described as best endeavor. Best endeavor.
Please break that for us.
Yes,
break that down for
best endeavor being that there was no binding agreement from the generation companies, the distribution companies, and then the umpire in the middle, the transmission
company.
The transmission.
No binding agreement.
There was no binding performance agreement. So what that means is that, okay, do the best that you can.
What is the name again?
Best endeavor.
Oh my God.
So that is what the power sector was having going before the recent agreement, which is just barely a month old. The agreement was actually activated on the 1st of July 2022. And this agreement made it binding for the entire sector to be able to harmonize their operations to ensure that the minimum of 5,000 megawatts is supplied
and distributed
within the electricity value chain at any point in time. So on the part of generators, the generation companies, the agreement is that they must enter into a binding agreement with gas suppliers. Before now, what we had was that the gas, because there was also no binding contracts, the gas suppliers were not prioritizing the generation companies to supply gas to them. They were basing it on wherever they can get their resources, or like first come first serve basis for other gas users, without prioritizing the generation companies. And because the generation companies were owing these gas suppliers, they had not serviced all their debts. So as a result of that, when they didn't have money to pay for the gas suppliers would go elsewhere, more so when we've been in a situation of a global gas shortage.
Yes.
So the demand for gas is very high.
Are we
much
talking
more.
about the NLG here that sells gas to the? Okay, you may not
I
know.
don't know the companies that supply gas to those generation companies, but
Okay.
there are a number of them, and they've had that was what was working between them, and also the transmit. But now that these contracts were signed, there must be a formal agreement with the gas suppliers that you must supply gas, and then there is also a binding agreement with distribution companies, of course, with the intervention of the Central Bank of Nigeria to monitor revenues collected and to ensure that the revenues are used to pay for the different components of the value chain, to ensure that the engine keeps running. And then also sanctions were imposed, as in, if the generation companies generate power, and then transmission companies are not able to wheel this power to distribution companies, the transmission company would have to pay the generators for the power they could not wheel. And then if the power was wheeled to distribution companies, and distribution companies for one reason or the other did not distribute it, then they have to pay for that power.
So there is a binding agreement.
So now there is a binding agreement. So it puts everyone on their toes, because they know that if they don't perform, penalties will be meted out.
These people have been taking Nigerians for a ride.
I'm telling you,
where did this idea come from at this time? That this idea that is better than best in you know that best in them is actually a funny terminology.
It's a funny terminology to employ in a very critical sector like power. And you are putting
so because of the lack of because of best endeavor, we have not been having power.
We've not been having power.
We've been having less power than.
Yeah. And okay, like you said there's been a
little improvement
that
I noticed.
Can you tell us about it?
To start with, where I live, we are outside of Nigeria.
Yes.
Let's not go into that. We're outside of Nigeria, and I won't tell anybody where I live. But besides that, other places, in the months of April, May, June, power in Nigeria had actually, it had gone down.
Deteriorated a whole lot.
The supply of power, or the distribution of power to destination was very low. Few persons were actually. People will complain that for the past 1 month I have not seen light. For the past 3 weeks, and whenever they bring light to my place, it's just about 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours. That has reduced a bit. That is what gives me the impression that this doing away with best endeavor is actually yielding some results.
Yes, even in my own area, I don't live in your place where there's always 24 hours power supply.
Yes.
We just make do with we are with every other person in Nigeria.
Yes.
So I've also noticed some level of improvement when it comes to power. In fact, my son even mentioned it today that NEPA is trying,
Yes.
So
because they are doing away with the best endeavor.
Yes, because best endeavor it's a very good thing that we are seeing there's been some improvement. However, there is still much to be achieved. I took a look at the grid today. As at 12 noon.
Yeah.
Total power generation was 3,590 megawatts.
Okay.
So it means that it's still a long way.
Yeah, it's not reached
off-
5,000 yet.
It's still a long way off
Mhm.
the 5,000 mark.
Yes.
And then
let's put things into perspective. What is left out of these 3,559 megawatts? The difference between that and 5,000 megawatts, which is the target, at least for this
yes,
new endeavor,
yes,
is enough to supply power fully to entire countries like Uganda, like Togo, like Liberia, Sierra Leone. These are places, this leftover or this shortage.
That's
1,000, say
barely
1,004, 1,005
yes,
is enough to power 2 Ugandas because
Wow.
yes, because Uganda at their peak period. The last document I read concerning that, I was doing a piece of commentary on the Ugandan power supply,
okay,
and during their peak generation and supply period was 600 megawatts,
wow,
and that 600 megawatts was in excess. It was an excess of what they needed because they could supply power to. They were boasting that they could supply power to other countries
wow,
that left over. So that is just to give a perspective to this. That is remaining
That is
1,400
and
whatever.
some margins.
Yes. So places like Liberia, they say to have peak. In fact, the much they can get that they need to power everything in the country is just like 1,000 megawatts.
Wow.
Yes. The same with Togo, the same with places like Sierra Leone, the Gambia. I don't know about Senegal, but these places, these are entire populations. So the amount we are talking about there is no small number.
It's no small number. And moreover, if we look at the trend in Nigeria, you know that power generation has been hovering. It has not in a very long time.
Yeah.
We've not had it above 4,000 megawatts.
Yeah.
So it's been within that 3,000 something. Then if it's up to 4,000, just a little margin. So it's been hovering there. So with this today now, we're having 3,569, and then the target is 5,000. It means there isn't any much improvement.
Yeah, there isn't any much
in terms of real addition to the generation.
You look at this whole thing. Look, I would like to make some points, but let's just take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk more about this issue we are discussing. Okay. Stay tuned, listeners.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back, viewers. We're still on to Money Radio, and this is the energy focus segment of the program. The topic we are discussing is the 5,000 megawatts that we actually, like you were saying before we went on that short break, there was this best endeavor program in place, which we are doing away
has
with.
been done away with.
Yeah, let's hope that it never comes back.
Amen.
Best endeavor. That's a funny terminology. Now, if you look at the real issues here, you look at the power sector, you realize that not much has been done since 2015 till now. After all, when we were talking about during the 2015-2016 period, we were talking power was just about this same
Yes.
quantum
Mm.
in the entire country.
Yes.
At best, we'll be talking about 4,200 megawatts.
Mhm.
So not much has actually, considering
In
the
terms
fact,
of in terms of increase in the volume of generation or generation, we cannot say that there is improvement.
yeah,
We will start talking about improvement in what is generated when we are having constantly above 4,500, tending towards that.
yes,
Because if you're looking at from 4,500 downwards, then into 3,000 megawatts and that, we've been having that.
we've been having that.
We've
There's
been
not much
having that, except when maybe for one reason or the other, there's no gas supply or one thing or the other, you find it dropping below. But the best that we've been having have been within this
range.
This range.
And
3,000,
considering the fact
4,000.
that the population of Nigeria has increased since
Yes.
then, you can see that we have actually had reduced power supply.
Mm.
When it comes, because more people are
coming
into
more industries are springing up,
exactly
more houses are being built
all around the country.
The population is increasing,
Yes.
yet power generation has
Yes, it's kind of
stagnated at this point. So,
and it's a shame, really. Now, talking about power supply, we're talking about power supply here. Mainly what we have been having as excuse from the stakeholders, when I say stakeholders, I'm talking about between the generation companies, as the GenCos, the transmission company, and distribution companies, is the issue of transmission. Now, with that in mind, let's segue into transmission, because there is this agreement here that Nigeria had with Siemens.
Yes.
And that agreement, it was put on hold for some time. What's the situation now?
Well,
and how will it improve power? When I say power, I'm not talking about what the GenCos are saying.
Yes.
Power that we can see.
Mm-hmm. Like we mentioned earlier of a slight improvement.
Yes.
So something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. If you look at it, more often than not, the generation companies, they say they are able to generate up to 7,000 megawatts. However, the transmission company before now has not been able to wheel more than 5,000 megawatts. So if the generation companies go ahead to generate beyond 5,000, it means that there is no capacity to wheel it, and then that will be lost. So, and I'm sure that is why the regulatory authority had to peg it at 5,000, taking the capacity of the transmission company into consideration. More so since sanctions would be applied for non-performance. So with that in mind, the Siemens arrangement was once again activated this year, and with the work that's been going on with the Presidential Power Initiative, we are seeing some level of progress. Like last week, it was announced that 10 transformers under the cement, mega transformers
Okay.
for the country have passed acceptance tests
Mm-hmm.
in Italy, and those were a group of Nigerians under that presidential power initiative
Okay.
went to, you know, um, uh, inspect the mega plants. So these are being expected in the country from next month, September.
Yes.
So with that coming in, it will go a long way to boost
Transmission.
transmission, because
When will it be installed?
that is, I don't know how long it would take for the transformers to be installed, but we are the projection that we've been given is that these transformers will come in next month.
Yes.
Next month when? Is it next month first? Is it next month
30
September 30th?
Mhm.
We don't have an idea, but we hope that this next month
Will be next
is
month.
actually should actually be a reality, and then within between then and then there are the period for installation. So this power agreement, I would say, it's a work in progress.
Okay.
A work in progress. But what that means is that the parties involved, they've been made to sit up. And
Okay.
so they will begin to take their responsibilities more seriously, because they know that somebody must pay
Yes.
for something not being done right. Some of the for some reason, not all the parties agreed to sign on the to sign to activate that agreement in July. Some said, oh, like the hydro generation companies,
Yeah.
they were reluctant to sign to activate it in July because the water levels are still low, and so on. They felt that they had to be allowed to sign when they are sure that their water levels will enable them to generate the agreed megawatts,
Okay.
so that they wouldn't fall foul to it. And some of the power, the generation, the gas thermals, also some of them who did not have concrete agreements with gas suppliers also said, okay, let's put our house in order before we put pen to paper to activate this. So maybe that's why we're seeing the generation being where it is. So but so far we can say that it has put them on their toes, making them sit up and begin to put things, strategies on ground to ensure that this works.
So before we go,
Yeah.
there's just this question I would like you to have your thoughts on. You know, looking up to the federal government, because all of this power generation, power distribution, transmission is still the federal government that has to make sure these things work. And at times we have had to need the intervention of the CBN,
Central bank.
yes, to the tune of more than £1 trillion.
Yes.
All of this is actually on the federal government, and it is pressuring the federal government's coffers.
Mhm.
Yes. So this issue has been in the National Assembly, and I would like your thoughts, just in case it passes the second reading and it becomes law, that states should be responsible for their own infrastructure as regards power, power generation, power transmission, and distribution. What do you think? Will it be better for the country, or will it plunge the country into for the problem?
It would be a good thing because all hands would be on deck to ensure that power is being generated enough. Like the energy crisis that has been on, we see the kind of negative impact it has had on companies, more so as industries, because of the high cost of diesel. Most of them have not been able to keep their operations on, even to the point that a former president of this country had to cry out that the high cost of diesel is actually crippling his business.
Oh,
His business.
oh yeah, I remember I read some article like that.
Yes, so it means that it has hit every
Yes.
business
Yes.
very, very hard.
Yeah.
And if the power generation was decentralized, it would, I believe, a lot more results would have been achieved. Everyone would have, some of the states who have this financial muscle would have by now, built up a good infrastructure to be able to supply power to their states, and then where they have excess, they can wheel it,
sell it.
Of course, sell it
to neighboring states,
to either to neighboring states, or sell it to send it to the national grid at a cost.
At a cost, yes.
To be able to enable meet other shortfalls. And so it's a very good thing.
Yeah, by that, all these lazy state governors will not be used as an excuse. Yeah. My state is not progressing because of low power supply. You know?
And all that.
I see a situation where a state like Lagos might be able to generate its own power, sell to Ogun State, which has industries.
Yes.
And if they have excess,
sell
to
beyond,
the federal government.
Of course,
yes.
Sell beyond that.
Yes.
So it's going to be, it's actually
you know, I was reading a book not long ago. In fact, just last night I was reading this book, and it's on India. India, there are some states in India that were actually left behind the developmental race. They had their own decisions to make, fiscal decisions, whatever to make. They had their own decisions to make, but they weren't making those decisions, and some states were moving ahead of them. But then they saw how those states, because actually that is a federal system. And when I say federal system, I'm talking about decentralized system. Regions develop their own
capacity, their own laws.
Yes, and they develop on their own. And I realized that a state like Bihar, a number of northern states that were left behind, when they started seeing southern states progress, they had to sit up. And when they sat up, they started progressing. And things are actually, that's why India is having the kind of growth they are having right now, because regions are allowed to develop on their own. I think this is a good bill, and once it becomes law, when states are allowed to generate their own power, they will be able to know how to sink money into those sectors.
Yes.
And then things will begin to grow up. Not everything depending on the federal government to pass on instruction, how this should go on, how that should go. It doesn't work like that.
And the country being as large
as it is. So I think that is one area the federal government needs to look, all lawmakers need to look into.
And also expedite the
yes.
of the bill.
As a parting comment, I would like to say I wish Best Endeavor does not return.
In fact, it's not just you. I pray that Best Endeavor never returns.
Okay. I would like to draw curtain on today's edition of Morning Radio. It has been the energy focused segment of the program. So thank you very much for being here. Thanks to our producers, but our biggest thanks go to you who follow us loyally on this program. We'll be back tomorrow for the transportation segment of the program. Until then, I've been your host, Case Hammond. Have a great day.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688